Hey everybody, welcome to See What God Did There, episode 9. I want to talk about Shavuos for a minute. There's a famous Talmudic teaching where it says that where does anti-Semitism come from? Where does hatred of the Jewish people come from? And the Talmud answers, one of the sages in the Talmud says that the root of it is Sinai, the giving of the Torah at Sinai. Why? Because the word Sinai and the word Sinna, hatred, are phonetically very similar. Now, obviously, Sinai is with a samech, Sinna is with a sin. They're not the same letters, but in Torah teaching, and especially in Kabbalistic teaching, the sounds, when there are similar sounds between letters, there is already an intrinsic connection, a deeper root connection of where those two concepts are drawn from in their creative source. Now, if you look around, there's, this is an idea that's been discussed very much in commentaries, and, the general understanding is that how is it that Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, brought hatred to the world and hatred to the Jews in particular? That's the idea. So generally people, the two explanations people give is that it brought jealousy, that once the nation saw that the Jews were chosen and they were special, obviously God had chosen the Jews when he spoke to Avram, but now it was something that was done, in a sense, in a more public way. So that created jealousy that the nations now saw that the Jews have been chosen for something special. Another explanation that's given is not just jealousy, but actually this is something that Sigmund Freud discussed, and other writers have discussed this idea that anti-Semitism, one of the roots of anti-Semitism is actually, at least among the Christian world, is the idea that the Jews, in giving the world the Torah, gave the world, in an evolved sense, Christianity as well, and that many among the nations don't like the fact that they have to follow the laws of Christianity and the morals. It becomes a burden to them, and therefore they, in a sense, either consciously or subconsciously hate the Jews for bringing the Torah to the world, because it ultimately resulted in the Judeo-Christian values which they find themselves beholden to. Perhaps there's another two ways to look at this hatred, and again, this isn't something I've seen, but perhaps there's two other angles that could shed some light here. One of them being that once the Jews were chosen to be God's chosen people, first when he chose them with Avram, but then again when he sealed the covenant at Har Sinai, although God told us many times that when we follow the Torah mitzvahs, we will be blessed, and when we don't, we will have potentially the opposite of blessing, there still is an intrinsic bond and covenant with the Jewish people, such that the Jewish people still have blessing even when they sin, even when they don't follow God's way. At the most basic level, we know that even when we don't follow God's way, Hashem still tells us, we discussed it in Parshas Bechukosai, he's not going to forsake us, he's not going to break his covenant with us, he's not going to utterly destroy us. He's still going to always remember us and its covenant and bring us back eventually to be his people. But in addition to that, we see throughout history that the Jewish people have had special blessing even when they were not religious. We see this the most in the past few hundred years, when many Jews left the ways of Torah mitzvahs, and yet we see that the Jewish people, even secular, non-religious Jewish people, have had an inordinate positive impact on the world in every single field of human inquiry and creativity. And it's something that everybody recognizes. All the nations recognize this, that the Jewish people, God has blessed them with unique gifts. So when the non-Jewish nations look at the Jewish people and they see that the Jewish people are blessed with unique gifts, when they see us fulfilling Torah mitzvahs and living holy lives and sacred lives in service of the higher Creator, then subconsciously or consciously, perhaps they look at us and they say, you know what, we understand why they're blessed, because they're living blessed lives. They're living extra special, extra holy, extra sacred lifestyles. But when they see Jews not following the way of Torah mitzvahs, they see Jews living their lifestyles the same way as the non-Jews, then it's possible that either consciously or subconsciously they look at that and they say, well, if they're living the same way as us, why are they extra blessed? And that's what causes potentially either a conscious or subconscious level of hatred, when that the giving of the Torah caused that the Jews will be respected among the nations when they keep Torah mitzvahs. But when they don't keep Torah mitzvahs and they're still blessed by God, that will cause extra jealousy and extra enmity, anti-Semitism, among the nations. And that was brought down at the time of the giving of the Torah at Sinai, when that covenant was sealed. One other aspect to it, on a different angle, is that when God gave us the Torah at Sinai, he was basically giving to us the secrets of creation and how to make creation perfected, how to heal, how to rectify, how to bring creation to the ultimate purpose of it, which is to have a peaceful reality. So perhaps when the non-Jewish nations look at the Jewish people or look at the world and they see that there is not peace in the world, perhaps there's a part of them, either consciously or subconsciously, which looks at the Jewish people and says, but God gave you the secrets. God gave you the Torah. There must be something in there that you're not telling us. Why aren't you sharing with us the secret to make everything right? This is compounded by the fact when Orthodox Jews, religious Jews, don't talk to the non-Jewish nations and don't tell them what our message is for them. Yes, on the one hand, our message is that we live a certain lifestyle that is supposed to be exemplary, and that can have a ripple effect when non-Jewish nations see Orthodox Jews, when Orthodox Jews live exemplary lives, which is not always the case, unfortunately. But yes, when they observe an Orthodox Jewish lifestyle, that can be a light unto the nations. But deeper than that is that the non-Jewish nations are perhaps thirsting for us to tell them what is the message. What is our message to them? And when we don't speak to them, when we don't give them our message, then they may be wondering, why is it that we're not sharing with them the secrets to make the world better? What are we hiding from them? And that could cause a certain conscious or subconscious hatred because they think that there's something that we're not telling them. I literally just had a conversation with somebody about a month and a half ago, a non-Jewish college student, who was asking me about what does Torah say about non-Jews and what is the message from Torah to non-Jews. And I was telling him, I said, the secret is that in the Orthodox world, a lot of Orthodox people don't even know what our message is for the non-Jewish world, because in the Orthodox world itself, there are many different ideologies, many different schools of thoughts, and there's no consensus. And I shared with him that there is a concept in the Torah that one day we will have again the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, which will be a unified voice for the Jewish people, to the Jewish people, and to the non-Jewish nations. And he was actually very interested in that. This is something we discussed in a previous episode about the Sanhedrin, that in the future the Sanhedrin will have the ability to re-explore, re-examine the entire Torah, and even potentially re-adjudicate questions of Jewish law, and Jewish law may change. But one of the most important things that will happen when the Sanhedrin is reinstated is that there will be one voice for Judaism. And whenever I share this with people about the Sanhedrin, they say, well, how could that happen? How could rabbis join together? How it never happened? There could be many things that will bring it to happen. One could be, unfortunately, if many religious Jews are leaving Judaism because of teachings that don't make sense to them, or potentially if the state of Israel, eventually the Orthodox Jews have a greater involvement in the government of the state of Israel, there will need to be one supreme halachic court that will judge Jewish law within the realities of governing a state. But on top of that, it could happen when, the Jewish people, both religious and non-religious, have had enough of all the arguments and differences of opinion, and they insist and demand that there be one clear Torah for everyone. And on top of that, when the non-Jewish nations, when all 70 nations come to the Jewish people and they say, we need to know what is the secret that God gave you. We need to know what the message is of Torah. And we don't want to hear this opinion, that opinion. We want to hear one unified voice from the 70 greatest sages of the Torah. And that is ultimately what will be the antidote to the sinna, to the hatred that came down at the giving of Torah at Sinai, when the Jewish people, all the sages of the Jewish people are united again, and Torah's message is united again to the Jewish people and to all the nations as one united human race.